We are up to the pay dollar number Aleph, the top of the page. Okay. So we had this machlekes before in the Gemara. We had two ways of understanding the Gemara, how to understand the machlekes Rabbi Elazar and Chachamim, where Rabbi Elazar says, according to one version, chutz, which means that in the get itself, he limited who she is, who she can marry, who she can't marry. Rabbi Elazar says is good enough. The Chacham say no, a get has to be all or nothing. And we had two ways of understanding that. Is it talking about a case where chutz in the get itself? It said clearly that that's how it's going to be. That only is permitted to certain people. And yet the blood is good enough, could be learned from Sukkim. And the Chacham say no, it has to be mutter to everybody. It has to be a safer krisis. And but if you made it as a tanai, the get itself, there were no condition, you just made it as a tanai, separate from the get, then everyone holds it valid like any other tanai. The get itself is kosher. That's one way of learning. The other way of learning is no, that itself is the argument, whether this is like any other tanai or the tanai is contradicting the purpose of the get. But if the get itself is only a partial separation of the husband, means you can't marry certain people, then it's not a valid get at all. Okay, so Tanabami learned. What happens is Hareze Gittich, he says to her, this is a get almanas on the condition shetanasi lepleni. Previously we learned on the condition that you should not marry. There was a limited get here. The get is open, but he makes it conditional that she must marry a particular person. So in theory, what should be the problem? She's mutter, but she made it tonight that she wants her to marry a particular person. The din is harei zula tenase. She should not marry that person. But the im nisas, if she did marry leiteitze. Now, she did marry who? So first the Gemara says, my comment, what does it mean? We don't want her to marry that person. We don't want her to fulfill the tonight. Why not? Because Shema Yemer, people are going to say, well, women are a commodity. And, you just ban them around, and, which is completely unfair and untrue. And we respect women, so therefore it should not be tolerated. So we should not even allow such a thing, to allow her to marry that person. So, and then what does it mean when he says, if she married somebody else, lo yiseitze. Now, why? How can you even think that? If he gave her time a get with her tonight, okay, you're worried it doesn't look right. But the fact is that if she doesn't abide by that tonight, it's not a get. So how can Rav Nachman even want to say im nisas la'achal teitze? Because Rav Nachman thought at this juncture that it bothers us so much that we're going to employ the rule about kinin rabbanan kedusha minei. We're going to say that she was never married to the guy in the first place, so we're not relying on the get, and we'll toss it aside. That's what he thought initially. So Gemara says, I don't understand, because it's a terrible, despicable thing what he's doing. But therefore, you what? You're going to say that Matayt is not a valid get, but we're going to let her stay with that man. We don't use that rule. Remember, we learned in Shaleach much earlier. We don't use that rule only in very extreme circumstances. Not in this case here. Otherwise, like taste of that, use it every time there's a problem with a mamza. Just use Afkin Rabbanan and save the day. Elam Nachman, you're right. We will not use Afkin Rabbanan Kedusha B'nei. Hachikama, this is what he meant. Harezu loy tenase loy. He should not marry that person. I want their commodity, but the inisas loy, not to a third party. But if she did marry the person and did not listen to what we were saying that it's repugnant, loy teitze. She can remain there. Even though we don't think it's right, but we're not going to force her to leave. If she's prepared to go to him, we'll go to him. Rabba says, it seems from here, when you said who did it sounds like don't marry him. If we want to be very pedantic, it sounds like, but someone else you could marry. How? Well, by Kimul Tanai, she can't. It's a Tanai. The Tanai said the only person that she can marry is this guy. No, there's a possibility that, let's say she marries somebody else. He didn't say you have to marry this guy first. He said you have to marry this guy. So maybe she can marry somebody else. And then a while later, she'll make sure she gets divorced. And then she'll marry this guy. She'll still fulfill the Tanai. He didn't say, I want you to marry this person first or within a week. Just, I want you one day to marry this guy. So you would have thought she can marry anybody she wants. And then she'll fulfill the Tanai later. And we're not worried that she's not going to fulfill the Tanai, because if she doesn't fulfill the Tanai, then no longer was a possible get, which means that she was married to another guy. If she has a kid, it'll be mamzeidim. So we're not worried. So the Gemara, and so therefore, what you're really doing is, can we just go ahead and act as if nothing happened and rely that one day you could fulfill it tonight? Well, how the plea of Yehuda, and this is comparable to an argument we had in Masech Nedarim. How confident are we that she will fulfill it tonight? What we learned, if you remember, we learned there was a mice in the tonight, and the person said, I forbid myself to sleep today, so that's the Isser. And the Tanai is if I sleep tomorrow. So the question is, can you sleep today and rely that you won't sleep tomorrow? Rav Yehuda said, Al Yishan Hayim. We cannot rely that you feel tonight, Shema Yishan Mocha. But Rav Nachman says, Yishan Hayim, oh, we can rely that you'll keep it tonight. So Rav Nachman saying the same thing here, that she can marry anybody she wants, and then she'll make sure she gets divorced, and then she'll marry that person for full tonight. So the Gemara said, no, I cannot see the comparison. How can you compare the two? Whether he sleeps tomorrow, it's up to him. He's tired. He can keep on poking himself with thorns. Make sure he doesn't fall asleep. But no, he won't fall asleep. But over here, if she marries a guy, it's not up to her that she should get divorced. So how can you rely? Let her marry anybody she wants, and then later on she'll marry the other guy. She can't marry two men. She has to get divorced. How do you know you get divorced? This is a raya that they bring. Remember, I told you a while ago that according to the Rambam, there's a way that a woman can get out of a marriage, and the bezin will force the guy. And that is, she says, "Moyis mis," and some other Shem as well. This is a raya that they used against the Rambam. What do you mean the Gemara says here? It's not achabed dog. Yes, it is. You can go say Moyis. And in fact, Teshuvah brings down, doesn't mean the Rambam brings down here. Others say it's not a rise from here because a liar she won't be. What if she does? It's not Moshe lie. So it's not biyoda. Elam Rav says Rav. Harezu loyte nase loy loy v'loy la'ach. We said don't marry that guy. Others for sure you cannot marry, but even this guy you cannot marry. We don't want people to go around and despise women and exploit women. You can't marry anybody else because you have it tonight. We're not going to force her to go out. But if she marries somebody else, she has to get out straight away. She has some time to tonight, therefore she has no right to marry the other person. In other words, she wouldn't even need a get. Because you didn't fulfill it tonight, there's no your nature's ish. Maybe. Something more further, Tanya comes over talking about the price like Rabbi. If you marry somebody else, you have to go out. Tell them what we learned. If a person makes these fantabulous tanoim that are not realistic. So what do we say? The tanai is a valid tanai and therefore there's no get there, or do we say that it's preposterous? He's just it's in the world of hyperbole, it doesn't mean anything. You stop get it. So, for example, what am I learn? This is you get on the condition that you go up to heaven, which is impossible. Actually, based on Engel asked, what means impossible? You can, if we had a taste of the Zora, you show me that Alexander Mukden flew on this balloon, and so on and so forth. He didn't have rockets yet. The rockets. So the Beis Engel says, when you say these words, Amanasha Ta'ali, I want you to go up by foot by yourself, not with the support of anything outside, like a bird. Amanasha Teidi L'Tahim. I'm wishing you go down to the upgrund, to the very bottom, the center of the core of the earth. Amanasha Tivli Konesh Damas. On the condition you eat, you swallow a stick that's a reed that's 4 arms long. Amanasha Tivili Kone Ben Kufa. Bring me a reed that's 100 arms long. These are all things which are totally unrealistic. I want you to cross the Mediterranean or the Atlantic by foot. Ain't a get. It's not a get. What do you mean it's not a get? Since according to Tanakama, you cannot meet it. It's impossible to meet the Tanoim. Therefore, don't even bother to try, and there's no get there because the Tanai will break the get. But Abiyud Tamer says, "Kazeh get. Yes, this is so preposterous. It's not a real Tanai, and therefore the Tanai is bottle and the Maisa is kaim. It is about get. In fact, Klau. I'll give you a rule. I'm going to do a bit tamer. Code tonight. It's impossible to fulfill this seifa at the end. He put in, he made it up tonight. Hyperbole. Very kosher, and it is kosher. It's in the face in a Mishnah, not here, but about Matzia. That you can fill the end, the Hishna, and you made it as a rider to whatever you were doing. It's a valid tonight. So therefore we infer what happens at tonight that cannot be fulfilled. Tonight bottle. Shmamna clear raya. So we have a fascinating discussion between Abaye and Rava. What happens if I make it tonight that technically you could fulfill, but the halacha does not allow you to fulfill it? So how do we treat that tonight? Is that tonight some waffle? Or is that tonight? And you could do it, just because it'll be even a you could do it. So, this is a get, but you have to eat chassid. Ma, what's it then? I'm going to buy he. Well, what's the difference if you cannot do it because of mitzias, you cannot do it, or you cannot do it because the halacha does not allow you to do it? It's not a real tanai, and therefore you could. Rava says, no. Since the mitzias is she could eat the treif, I shall get lashes, but she could eat, so therefore it's a valid tanai. Don't eat, and it won't be a gut. Labaye, according to Baye, when Rabbi Yehuda ben Taimah says, I want to give you a rule that any Tanai that cannot be fulfilled is not a Tanai. What do you mean I want to give you a rule? What's he adding that we already don't know from the examples we had before? The rules come to include even something which physically you can do, but halachically you can't, is as if you cannot do it. L'Rava, when Rabbi Yehuda ben Taimah concludes, this is a get. What's he adding? Because he already said what's a normal Tanai is a get. What's kazeh? Only these types of Tanai, a normal Tanai that can be fulfilled. But Chazer, which halacha does not allow you to fulfill, what do you call it? Is what do you call it? Sorry, Chazer you could eat it, but it's a good Tanai. When Abuda says, he says here, what is it? Klau. Sorry, Abuda say it says kozeh. Get, it's a valid get because the Tanai is not a Tanai. What's he adding there? Because they get like this. Like this means in addition to going up to the sky and all that, which is irrelevant, because they're not good tonight. Because they like this. So what else is he adding? He's adding what do you call it? I'm mixing up here. When Rava says, when he says that because they get, so he's trying to say, but not what? These are a get, there's no Tanai. But what is different than here? Not a normal case, because obviously he's adding even a case of chazer where l'choyre, you can argue that's similar to these things here. So he's telling you that's not similar. It has to be koza exactly like this. That the Metzias does not allow you to fulfill it, but the Metzias allows you to fulfill it. Just Allah doesn't allow you. That's not considered perfectly, and it's not a get unless you fulfill it tonight. Basically, that's a question. It says, this is Rashi gives to the Gemara. Here's a get on the condition that you must have relations with that person. I don't care the relations are in a heterotic way or in a forbidden way. Just nus. But you have to, in this time, but tonight, you don't have any get. It's up to you whether you're tonight or not. Al the condition you have no relations with your father or my father, intimate relations, which obviously not allowed to api halacha, then ain't choishin, and there's nothing shemin. We're not worried at all that she will, and you can go ahead and use the get because obviously for Shaveda you won't do it. And but what happens the ilu so now we're inferring. Or extrapolating. It doesn't say here, but if I'm going to give you the get on condition you have a relation with my father. And he said, they're Isa. Is Labaye why he doesn't say that? Because according to Baye, that's not a tonight. Since even though physically it can happen, since halacha he can't, it's as if I'm asking you to go to the heaven. Or the Rava Kasha, according to Rava, that wouldn't that be a bigger chiddush? That even if I ask you to do an Isa, it's a valid tonight, and if you don't fulfill it, then there's no get. Amlach Rava, no. When do I say that an Isser is valid tonight when it's under your control? If it's possible, the Achla, you eat it, Velakya. You'll get malchus, but it's up to you. If I tell you, go ahead and be boiled with that person, it's also possible you go ahead and you'll have relations with how? The person might not be interested. What do you mean it's your control? How's your control? You can always bribe him. Say, look, I'll have a one-night stand, and I'll pay you something for it. She's telling him, and there's a good chance people can be bought. The question is only what price. So, so therefore, it's sort of in her control. But Abba Vavicha, Bedidor Kaima, Abba Vavicha is up to her. And he of the Yisura, she's prepared to do the Yisur. Of the Yisura, will they do the Yisur? They won't do the Yisur. In other words, what's the difference? So Taisa says, Abba Vavicha is an Yisur deraisa. And it seems money is not going to get someone to do an Yisur deraisa. Having znus as a pon in a penuya is only a nisa derabanan, and therefore outside of marriage, and therefore for money, people will be over nisa derabanan. From Rashi, it seems there's no difference the rabbanon the raisa. People will not do an aveda for money, but you can do it in a hetetic way. Marry him. You could convince him with money that he should marry you, not that you should have znus. Rashi says it. In other words, so it's a fundamental argument. Tosha says in the psyche of a person, people did not treat the rabbanans and people can be bought, and then delude themselves. It's not so bad. It's all right. And Rashi says no. Rashi says that even if you're rabbanan, you cannot buy off people. You can only convince them to do things that not necessarily they want to do, but they'll do because to get some money. Second matter further. Okay, Rava, according to Rava, when he says klal, I want to add some more things to I want to add some more things to these things like flying up to heaven. Even though it's not mamash Matthias, you could have intimacy with your father, but or with his father, but nevertheless, it's such an isa that they won't just succumb or be seduced by money. But kazeh, only this and not what. And what mute basa chazer. Basa chazer, however, is a valid tonight. You'll get malka, but you can do it. But Labaya, he says klal. What other tanoim are included that was that hyperbole? Lasuya basa chazer. If the halach is allow you to do it, it's just like going up to the sky, walking across the Mediterranean. It's impossible. Yeah, kazeh to negate what? The muti pliny, not a father thing, but a fremder, you could always buy them off, and therefore that's a valid tonight. Makes a question now. On a buy, here's a get. Here's a get. Amanasha techli basa chazer. Here's a get on condition you must go ahead and eat chazer. V'im hoysa zora, and if it says she's a Yisraelis, amanasha techli b'truma. Or lebas lebia, eat truma, which you're not allowed to. No, I'm asking you to do nisa. Now, locheda going to buy it. That's not a valid tonight. Right, and the get should be valid. But yet it says here further in the Brayz, V'im in the zida, she was a nazir. Amanasha tishi yain, she drink wine. Niskayim atnai, and they get. V'im lav any get. Clear that even if halacha prevents you from doing it, it's still a valid tonight. Is l'rocha nicha b'labai kasha. Omer l'chabai, Abai says, "Be sobra dibra hakli." Who told this Brayz is according to remember the machlek Yehuda ben Taim lechamin. Haman yilabani. This is the rabban, and they hold that any tonight is a valid tonight. Says the Gemara, okay, and but take for the master mashakosa potato by her. But okay, that's a separate issue. The fact that he's asking her to drink wine as a nazir or to eat truma when she's a Shabbat Yisrael, isn't he making it tonight against the Torah? And we have a rule: b'chol hamasna mashakosa potato. Anybody makes it tonight against the Torah, tonight bottle is not a valid tonight. And we learn that from the Gobnei Reuben. It's not against the Torah. Omer Amad B'Levika. Ki Amrina, when do we say Master Mashakasa B'Torah tonight bottle when your tonight is directly against the Torah? For example, if you're going She'eda Ksus or nothing, he marries her, he says, on condition, I have no responsibilities to you, not interested, not to provide for you, nothing, clothe you. The Hukaka, he's trying to undermine the Torah's rules. Aval over here, Ihi Ka'akra. Here, she's the one who decides to eat the treif, or she's the one who decides to drink the wine or eat the truma. So she's uprooting. So what kind of test is that? The only reason why she's drinking the wine is so the get should be valid. So you caused her. Masculine ravina klumka akra ihi elakim day. The only reason why she's going to drink the wine is because you're forcing her. Ultimately, you're the one who's causing the whole akira. Elam ravina. The moment you got married, you already have the chiyuv. But you're saying, I don't want to follow the chiyuv. So you're oiked against the Torah. Aval hacha over here, don't get married. Did he tell her that you have to eat the truma? It's her decision. She wants to be free. So even though indirectly he's the cause, but it's not directly. So therefore, it's not a master masha kosa b'tayda. Take about further. So what does the Mishnah then say? It's a case of yasa. What do? You should do is you should take it back from her according to Chachamim. Remember, Rabbi Elazar says a get with the shear is good, and the Chachamim say no. What you do is take the get back. If he said that you can marry anybody you want except this person's not a valid get, take the get back and give it to her again and do it properly. Now, So you had to take it back, or you can leave it with her and just say, change the words. Remember, it wasn't. Then it says in the Mishnah. But if you actually wrote it into the get itself, those words, you can't erase it. It doesn't help erasing. And what Ray said last time, Tesis holds that erasing is only a problem when you're trying to fix up something which destroys the get. But if you stop erasing things in the get, it's not a problem. But Tesis says we're all machmer. We don't want any erasures in it. Says the Gemara, people make laws and all that. Says the Gemara, if you wrote inside, if you wrote it inside the get, it is a problem. You cannot fix it up. Did I? Yes, I did. Kate said, "Yasi, I'm sorry." Man, Tana, who learned that? The follow when you said the Tanya we learned before. We had a machlekes before. If you say to a woman that this is a get, you sort of misled her. They didn't know what it is, but you sort of misled her, and you have to reveal to her. So we learned that. If Shemalaza says, it's not good enough for him to turn around and say, by the way, this Shachayba gave you the get. He has to take it back from her and give it to her again. Yeah, and this is your Hegit, here's your get. So the Chayda, this our Mishnah here follows that view. Says Abiyach Lav Dafka. Abiyach Lamar, I feel it, Tamer Rebbe. Even Rebbe holds that you can just leave it with her and just say, by the way, this is a get, not a shtachoy. Dilchain Ama, you people. Rabbi Yechon was in Israel was saying to Rav Kahana, we'll learn the end of Baba Kama, a fascinating story about Rav Kahana. And he said, you people, Teisha has a little problem, that's how Rashi learned. There's a problem because Chizkiah was Rabbi Yechon's Rebbe. Chizkiah was a son of Rabbi Chia. And if Chizkiah was Rabbi Yechon's Rebbe, why is he talking to Rav Kahana? The Rashi learns he's talking to Chizkiah. Why would he be telling Chizkiah about Rav Kahana? And why is he talking to Rav Kahana when Chizkiah's Rebbe is still alive? Must be Chizkiah passed away. And he's telling his Talmidim, you guys from Babel, say, Shiny Hach. Rav Kahana was extremely smart. Rabbi Yechon was very intimidated by Rav Kahana, as we'll learn in the Baba Kama. So he said, you guys say, Shiny Hocha. This case is very different. Why? In that case over there, when he told her the get, there's nothing. So therefore, you didn't yet complete giving her the get. So Rebbe says, just say the right words. Over here, the get already is effective. Why? Because we learned before that even a reach get, if you say that you're usher to the whole world, but you're no longer married to me, but you're usher to the whole world. It's not a valid get, but she can no longer marry a kohen if he dies 5 minutes later. Why? Because there's a reach get, you can no longer live with him. So therefore, it's a reach get, and she can, and it's partial get. So the get already achieved something. So you just leave it by her. It's too late to say anything because the get already achieved. You have to take it back and give it to her again, and so on. Then before you talk, how can one get do two things? Talking about it further, if you wrote inside the chutz, that's a problem. If you wrote it, it says in the Mishnah, if you wrote it inside, it's too late. As if to say, but if you said it orally, it's all right. That's the whole thing. We're saying fix it up, say change the wording. But if you wrote it inside, it's found. No, now in the get you have two parts. You have the teifus and the teidif. The teifus is the standard copy of the get, and the teidif is where you write down, insert the names and the most important part of the get. Shemiyah, her name, his name, the name of the cities, and that's the teidif. So the question is, when did you say the Tanai? Did you say the Tanai to the Sefer before he wrote the Teidif? By the way, I want you to know that this get that you're about to write is only the Mutter Torah will accept as that person. Or did he say it after he completed the Teidif, when he's writing the rest of the standard of the get? That's when he says to her. So he says, Mount, I would have thought, this is Absafra. I would have thought, Hanimili, when is it a problem? La'achara Teidif. When do we make this distinction, but whether you wrote it in the get or whether you said it orally? You Teidif the bulk, the Teidif, the pivotal part of the critical part of the get was already done. And now it's just a teifus. So make a distinction. If you wrote it, it's still a problem. But if you said it orally, you can always fix it up. I believe that before the Sefer began writing the essence of the get, you told the Sefer, by the way, you should know that this get that you're writing is only precludes this and this person. Then I feel a panami puzzle. Maybe even don't verbally puzzle. Because when the Sefer wrote, he wrote it based on what you just told him. Therefore, Absafra come and tell you no, that what only if you wrote it is a problem, even the teifus. That's Absafra's view. And Rabbi said, no, I agree with this distinction. When do you make a distinction between Baal Peh written only after the Teidif? But before the tailif, I feel a pen apostle, even a pen is possible. But all the Rav, the time, Rav is consistent with his view. Amalei Rav, Lahana de Costa Giti, Rav wrote to the said to these people, these Seifim, who write these Giti, Shatuku Labal. Make sure the husband doesn't say anything. Because prior to the get, he can ruin the whole thing. Don't let him say anything. You shouldn't mention any conditions. Kol hatanoim paisim beget. Rebbe hold that all conditions pass the get if you wrote it inside, even if it filled the tanai. We'll see why later because of Exeda, because all the tanaim. Then next time you write the tanai of chutz. Taisha doesn't like Rashi Pshat at all because he believes the only tanaim of chutz, a regular tanai, give $200 or whatever it is. Why should that be a problem? That's too far of a leap to say if you allow that tonight, we're going to write the tonight chutz, which chutz it tampers with the get itself. Saying Abanasa, you give me $200 is not really tampering with the get itself. So Taisa disagrees. But this is not Ashland. All tonight pass on the get if you write it quoted in the get. They should be said orally to the Eidim and so on. And the Chama say Kol Shapaisel Apeh Paisel B'Ksav. Anything which passes for example, chutz from this person, you're not allowed to write it. If it doesn't pass say for example, I say Amanas, you give me titni, Masayim, Zuz, you give me $200, then ain't a place of write it down. That's what Rabban told. You can't. Yeah, Amanas ain't no place ain't a place of Amanas doesn't pass doesn't pass even according to one opinion, the Gemara, Amanas, that everyone agrees, we say Amanas, that you don't marry that person, is also not passing, so you can write something. But it's like this. Machlekes, when is Machlekes of Rebbe, when if you cannot write it tonight, the Chama say you could write it tonight, is only lifnei ha-toidev. Rabbi says only if you wrote it before the Taidiv, and therefore Rebbe saw Machmir. The Rebbe hold before the Taidiv, the Sefer is writing, if you're going to allow you to write stamp tonight, next time you put in Chutz, Gazin, Amanas, out of Chutz, we make example for no tonight. And the Rabbanan Sabri, like Gazin, Amanas, out of Chutz, they say too big of a leap. Even before the Taidiv, you can tell them I want $200. But after the Taidiv, Divrei Hakol Kosher. But if after the Taidiv you want to write down this tonight, even Rebbe will be made that it's kosher. Now, even though if he puts into the get chutz after the Teiv as well, it's still what do you call it? Possible, yeah. But nevertheless, a gzeira we're not going to make. If you're going to put an almanas after the Teiv, we're not going to make, after the Teiv, we're not worried about before the Teiv. It's just before the Teiv itself, we're going to be geyser. If you make this way, utter that way. If you allow other tonight, next time you put in chutz as well. And the Mishnah that says ksava you shouldn't write in the get, and vukimna the chutz, we say that is talking about chutz. This is person alamanas like puzzle. Alamanas is not puzzling. So who's that? Who Ibai is saying? We could say he's talking about lifnat toiv rabbanon. Because rabbanon whole is not it's not a problem. If they don't make a gzeda, you can write almanas. We're not worried. The Ibai say or you can say it's after the Teiv, and it goes according to everybody. After Teiv, we're not going to make a Gzeda after Teiv, after before Teiv. However, Rava says no. The whole machlek is a Rebbe Chachamim whether you can put Tanai or not is la'achar Teiv, and Rebbe holds it's not a Gzeda to say any Tanai after the Teiv. Next time you write Tanai before the Teiv, and if you write Tanai before the Teiv, maybe you put a chutz. It's all part of the same Gzeda. The Rebbe saw that Gazinin ought to leave that Teiv, and Rabban hold like Gazinin ought to leave that Teiv. I believe now to put down a Tanai, Stama Tanai, Divrei Hakol Apostle. Everyone knows the apostle. Umasnisi in the tonic. So when the Mishnah said if you write it inside the get, it's rendered apostle. Vukimna, and we said that what are we talking about? Writing is bechutz. Aval almanas loy apostle. But if you write almanas, it's not a problem. If you write it in the get, who's the author of that opinion? It must be talking about la'achar Teiv and according to the Rabban. Because before the Teiv, everyone agrees you're not allowed to write anything. The father of Avin wants to learn before Rabzeda the following Braisa, the following words: "Cause of get out." And I remember Rabzeda is the one who said before that the whole machlekes is before Teiv, but after Teiv, everyone agrees you can put down all the Tanaim. You cannot put down chut, but you can put down all the Tanaim you want. Before Teiv, the Chacham say put down all the Tanaim, we're not geyser, and let hold you are geyser. So it comes along the father of Avin, and he says Rabzeda, this is the Braisa: "Cause of get out Tanai." If you write a get on a Tanai, Divrei Hakel Pasuk. You wrote again tonight. Everyone knows Pasuk. Everyone knows Pasuk. So you might Divrei Hakel Pasuk. According to Rab Zayda, even before the Tatif, that's the argument. The Rebbe says that it's Pasuk any tonight, and Chum says it's all right. You can always write it tonight. I can come along and write this Divrei Hakel Pasuk. This sounds like Rava. Because according to Rava, it makes sense. It's before the Tatif, and according to everybody, it's Pasuk. Even the Chacham made if you write any tonight. The only argument is after the Tatif. But Rab Zayda, when he heard this brisa, he said it can't be because it doesn't conform with my opinion. Ela Ema. You probably memorized it incorrectly. Say Divrei Hakel Kosher. Say according to what do you mean kosher? Rebbe said you're not allowed to write down it tonight. Oh, but according to Rab Zayda, if it's the second part of the get after you wrote down all the specifics, then everyone agrees you can put the tonight there in the get. You cannot put the word chutz, but you can put it tonight. Belema, why do you have to say that Divrei Hakel instead of being Divrei Hakel kosher? Make a puzzle. Say Divrei Hakel kosher. Make another. Maybe that's not the error. Maybe the error was Belema harei that puzzle. Why don't you take out the word Divrei Hakel? Maybe the mistake was he memorized Divrei Hakel. Take out the word Divrei Hakel and just say harei puzzle instead of harei kosher. Is puzzle? And Rebbe holds his puzzle. He's talking to the one who holds the puzzle. So the mistake was that he memorized Divrei Hakel. Why do you say the mistake was he memorized kosher when it should be, if he memorized puzzle when it should be kosher? Maybe the word that he made a mistake on was word Divrei Hakel. Says the Gemara, Belema harei is a puzzle, but Rebbe. So Gemara explains when a person forgets things. Tana Divrei Hakel. The Braisa definitely said Divrei Hakel. You don't make such a mistake when there's an argument. You say everybody agrees. It's too big of a mistake. The mistake was the Braisa said everyone holds. He thought the Braisa said everyone says that it is possible, and that's a mistake because the Rabbanan hold that according to Zayda, it's kosher even before the Tatif to write other Tanaim in the get. So the mistake was that he thought everyone holds that it's possible. It's really everyone holds that it's kosher, and it's talking about after the Tatif, and everyone agrees according to Zayda that he writes tonight it's kosher. But Divrei Hakel, if the Braisa really said that Hareza, this opinion says that this is the apostle, and he made a mistake and he memorized Divrei Hakel, people don't make such a mistake. Too big of a mistake. Okay, tomorrow, Shem, do it fine.